What happens when the loneliest billionaire in Montana finds his mail-order bride freezing to death in a blizzard? This isn't your typical love story. It's a tale of second chances, healing hearts, and discovering that some things like true love can never be bought. If you love slow-burn Western romances with emotional depth and unexpected twists, you're in the right place. Hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss our cinematic love stories. Drop a comment below telling us, would you risk everything for love or play it safe? Now, let's step into the frozen plains of Montana Territory, 1882, where two broken souls are about to collide. I ordered a bride, but never meant to own your heart. Billionaire saves her from blizzard. The wind howled across the Montana plains like a living thing, angry and cold and relentless. Wade Thornton stood at the window of his ranch house, watching the first snowflakes of December spiral down from a sky the color of old iron. The glass was cold against his palm. Behind him, the house stretched, empty and silent. 12 rooms, high ceilings, fine furniture shipped from back east. Everything a successful man could want. Everything except warmth. He turned from the window and walked through rooms that echoed with his footsteps. In the dining room, the long table stood polished and bare. He'd eaten there alone for 3 years now, ever since Catherine died. Ever since the baby died with her. Wade stopped in front of the portrait hanging above the fireplace. Catherine smiled down at him, forever young, forever frozen at 23. The artist had captured her just months before she died, had caught that particular light in her eyes when she talked about the baby, their son. Neither had lived to see dawn. He forced himself to move past the portrait, past the memory. The grandfather clock in the hall showed 5:30. Marcus would arrive within the hour. His brother. His rival. The man who would inherit everything if Wade failed to fulfill their father's last wish. Marry within 5 years of Catherine's death, or lose it all. The old man had been dead for 2 years himself, but his will still controlled Wade's life like puppet strings. Wade had thought it cruel at first. Now he understood. His father had seen what Wade was becoming, a ghost haunting his own house, a man turning to stone. The sound of hoofbeats pulled him from his thoughts. Wade moved to the door and opened it, letting in a blast of frigid air. Marcus dismounted from his bay gelding, his expensive coat already dusted with snow. "Brother," Marcus said, climbing the porch steps. His smile was practiced perfect. It had always been perfect. "Cold night for it." "Cold night for what?" Marcus stepped inside, brushing snow from his shoulders. "For making deals, securing futures." He pulled an envelope from his inner pocket. "I've done you a favor, Wade. Found you a bride." Wade stared at the envelope. Inside would be a letter, perhaps a photograph. A woman he'd never met. A woman desperate enough to marry a stranger and travel to the edge of nowhere. Eleanor Ashford. Marcus continued, settling into Wade's leather chair without invitation. From Boston, good family fallen on hard times. Educated, well-mannered. Everything you need to satisfy father's will. "I don't need anything." "No," Marcus's smile sharpened. "Then I'll take the ranch. Take the cattle, the land, the accounts. Father left it to me if you remain unmarried come March. That's 3 months, Wade. 3 months and it's all mine." Wade took the envelope. The paper felt heavy in his hands. He thought about the ranch, about the years of work he'd put into this land, about the cattle branded with the Thornton T, about the legacy that would die if he failed. But mostly he thought about the empty rooms upstairs, about Catherine's sewing kit still sitting in the bedroom untouched, about the tiny cradle he'd built with his own hands now hidden beneath a sheet in the attic. "She arrives December 23rd, Marcus said. "I've arranged everything. The train, the escort from town. All you have to do is marry her before March 1st. Simple business transaction." Wade looked at his brother, looked at the calculation behind the friendly facade. Marcus had always been good at wearing masks. "Why are you helping me?" "Because you're my brother." The lie came smoothly. "And because I'd rather see you happy than see you lose everything out of stubbornness." Wade knew better. Marcus wanted the ranch, had always wanted it. This help was something else, a game perhaps, a way to watch Wade fail. But what choice did he have? "All right," Wade said. "Send the letter, tell her to come." Marcus stood, triumph flickering in his eyes before the mask of concern settled back into place. "You're making the right choice. Eleanor needs escape as much as you need company." After Marcus left, Wade opened the envelope. Inside was a single photograph and a brief letter in careful handwriting. Mr. Thornton, I understand the nature of our arrangement. I seek shelter and safety. You seek to fulfill an obligation. I ask only for honesty and respect. I offer the same in return. I am not a romantic. I do not expect love. But I am educated, capable, and willing to be a partner in name to preserve your inheritance. Respectfully, Eleanor Ashford. Wade studied the photograph. She was pretty in a serious way. Dark hair pulled back, eyes that looked directly at the camera without coyness. There was something haunted in those eyes, something that reminded him of his own reflection. He set the letter on his desk and walked to the window again. Snow fell harder now, covering the world in white. In 12 days, a woman would arrive on the train, a stranger who would become his wife, a business transaction, nothing more. The lie tasted bitter even as he thought it. 300 miles east, Eleanor Ashford packed her single trunk by candlelight. Her room, once spacious and filled with books, had been stripped bare. The books sold the furniture auction done. Even her mother's jewelry had gone to pay her father's debts. Debts that didn't exist. She'd learned the truth too late. Richard Blackwood had forged the papers, invented the gambling losses, all to back her father into a corner, all to force Eleanor into marriage with a man 30 years her senior, a man whose eyes made her skin crawl. Her father had discovered the deception. The shock had stopped his heart. Eleanor folded her last dress, the blue wool practical and warm, and placed it in the trunk. Tomorrow she would board the train. Tomorrow she would leave Boston, forever trading one cage for another. But at least this cage was her choice. She'd answered 3 advertisements before Wade Thornton's reply arrived. The others had written of loneliness, of needing a woman's touch in their homes. Wade's letter had been different, businesslike, honest. He'd written, but you need a wife to preserve my inheritance. You need safety and a fresh start. We can provide these things for each other without pretense of affection. It was the coldest proposal she'd ever read. It was also the most honest. A knock at her door made her jump. She crossed the room quickly and opened it a crack. Mrs. Pemberton stood in the hallway, her landlady's face pinched with worry. There's a man downstairs. Says he's from Mr. Blackwood. Says he has questions about your departure. Eleanor's blood went cold. Tell him I'm not here. I already tried. He says he'll wait. Mrs. Pemberton's voice dropped to a whisper. You should go now, dear. Out the back. I'll delay him as long as I can. Eleanor grabbed her trunk. It wasn't heavy. Everything she owned in the world fit inside one case. She hugged Mrs. Pemberton quickly, then slipped down the servants' stairs and out into the Boston night. Snow fell here too. The same storm that blanketed Montana had reached the East Coast. Eleanor pulled her cloak tight and walked toward the train station, her boots crunching on fresh snow. She didn't look back. The train journey took 5 days. Eleanor watched the landscape change outside her window. Cities giving way to farmland, farmland to prairie, prairie to mountains. Each mile took her farther from Richard Blackwood. Each mile took her closer to Wade Thornton. She wondered what he looked like. The photograph he'd sent showed a man in his 40s, stern-faced with eyes that held old grief. He stood beside a horse, one hand on the animal's neck. The background showed mountains and endless sky. He looked alone. She understood alone. On the 5th day, the train pulled into Silver Creek, Montana. The platform was nearly deserted, just a few passengers bundling against the cold, a freight worker unloading crates. Eleanor scanned the faces, looking for Wade Thornton. Instead, she found a thin man in an expensive coat, his smile too practiced. Miss Ashford, he approached with his hand extended. I'm Marcus Thornton. Wade's brother. He sent me to collect you. Something in Eleanor's chest tightened. Mr. Thornton was expecting to meet me himself. Business kept him at the ranch, a cattle emergency. I hope you understand. Marcus gestured toward a wagon. It's a 2-hour drive. We should leave before the weather worsens. Eleanor looked at the wagon, at Marcus's smile, at the driver, a rough man called Silas who wouldn't meet her eyes. Every instinct screamed wrong. But what choice did she have? She couldn't go back to Boston, couldn't face Blackwood, couldn't survive alone in a frontier town where she knew no one. She climbed into the wagon. They rode in silence for the first hour. Snow fell steadily, muffling the world. Eleanor pulled her cloak tighter, watching the landscape grow wilder. No farms here, No houses, just endless white and the dark shapes of distant mountains. Your brother's ranch is quite remote, she said. Very remote. Marcus's smile had faded. Very isolated. The perfect place for someone running from something. Eleanor's hands clenched in her lap. I beg your pardon. Come now, Miss Ashford. Or should I call you Mrs. Blackwood? That is your intended name, isn't it, before you ran? The wagon lurched. Eleanor grabbed the side to steady herself. I don't know what your... Richard Blackwood sent telegrams to every town within 500 miles, looking for a runaway bride, offering a reward. Marcus leaned closer, offering a very generous reward. Eleanor's heart hammered. She looked at Silas, but the driver kept his eyes forward, kept the horses moving through the snow. I'm expected at the Thornton Ranch, she said, forcing her voice steady. Your brother will wonder where I am. My brother thinks you're arriving tomorrow. Weather delays, you understand. By the time he realizes the truth, you'll be on your way back to Boston, back to your devoted fiancé. The wagon hit a rut. Eleanor was thrown sideways. She caught herself on the edge, fingers gripping wood. They were far from the road now, far from anything. Marcus pulled a flask from his pocket and took a long drink. Silas, let's stop here. No point driving all the way to Blackwood's men in this weather. They can collect her in the morning. Stop. Silas pulled the horses to a halt. Out here. She's not going anywhere in this storm. Marcus climbed down from the wagon. Tie her if you need to. I'll be at the hotel in town. Collect your payment tomorrow. Eleanor didn't think. She jumped from the wagon and ran. Behind her, Marcus shouted. Silas cursed. But Eleanor was already sprinting into the storm, her wedding dress, the foolish, hopeful dress she'd worn for the journey, tangling around her legs. She ran into wilderness, into snow and wind and gathering darkness. She ran for her life. Wade knew something was wrong before he could say why. He'd spent the day checking fence lines, preparing for the storm. He felt building in his bones. The cattle were secured, the horses in the barn. Everything ready, everything except the growing unease in his chest. Marcus had sent a telegram that morning. Weather delay. Eleanor arrives tomorrow. But the weather hadn't been bad that morning, and Marcus's handwriting in the telegram had looked rushed, nervous. Wade saddled his horse as the sun set. His ranch hand Tom watched from the barn door. Boss, that storm's coming in bad. You sure about this? Wade checked his rifle, his supplies. Something's wrong. With the cattle, with everything. Wade swung into the saddle. If I'm not back by morning, send someone to town. He rode towards Silver Creek, following the road through deepening snow. The wind picked up, howling across the plains. Wade pulled his scarf over his face and urged the horse faster. 2 hours from town, he found the wagon tracks. They left the main road and headed north toward the Badlands, toward nothing. Wade followed them. The tracks grew confused, scattered. One set of footprints broke away, smaller, running. Wade's heart kicked against his ribs. He followed the footprints into the wild. The storm hit with full force. Snow fell so thick, Wade could barely see his horse's ears. He dismounted and led the animal, following the tracks by feel as much as sight. Then he saw her, a dark shape against white, collapsed near a rock outcropping. Not moving. Wade ran. She was half buried in snow, her dress frozen stiff. Her lips were blue, her eyes closed. Wade pulled off his gloves and pressed his fingers to her throat. A pulse, faint but there. He gathered her into his arms. She weighed nothing. Her skin was ice. Stay with me, he said, though he knew she couldn't hear. Stay with me. He carried her to his horse and lifted her into the saddle, then climbed up behind her. She slumped against his chest, unconscious. Wade wrapped his coat around her and turned the horse toward home. The ride back took hours. Wade talked to her the whole way, not knowing if she could hear, not caring. He told her about the ranch, about the mountains, about the spring wildflowers that covered the valley. He told her she was safe now. He told her to hold on. Her breathing stayed shallow. Her skin stayed cold. When the ranch house finally came into view, Wade had never been so grateful for anything in his life. He carried her inside, shouting for Tom. Together, they stripped off her frozen dress, wrapped her in blankets, built up the fire until the room blazed with heat. Wade rubbed her hands, her feet, trying to bring warmth back into frozen limbs. Her fingers were white, bloodless. Frostbite, probably. He prayed she wouldn't lose them. Tom brought hot water bottles, more blankets. They worked through the night. Dawn broke clear and cold. The storm had passed, and Eleanor Ashford opened her eyes. She woke in a room she didn't recognize. Firelight flickered on log walls. Heavy quilts covered her. Her body ached like she'd been beaten. Easy, a deep voice rough from disuse. Don't try to move yet. Eleanor turned her head. A man sat beside the bed, the man from the photograph. Wade Thornton. His face was haggard, unshaven. His eyes held something she couldn't name. You found me, she whispered. Barely. He held a cup to her lips. Drink. Small sips. The water tasted like life. Eleanor drank, then fell back against the pillows. Your brother died. I know. Wade's voice went hard. Tom rode to town this morning. Marcus is gone. So is Silas. The sheriff is looking for them. Eleanor closed her eyes. Gone. They were gone, but they'd tried to sell her. Tried to send her back to Blackwood. Your hands. Wade's voice gentled. The doctor came. He said no permanent damage, but they'll hurt for a while. She looked down. Her hands were bandaged, swollen. She flexed her fingers experimentally. Pain shot up her arms, but her fingers moved. You saved my life, she said. Wade stood abruptly and walked to the window. You're the woman I sent for, the woman who was supposed to arrive safely. He turned back and his face was carved from stone. This is my fault, my brother's betrayal, my responsibility. It's not, you'll stay here until you're, then we'll discuss our arrangement. He moved toward the door. The contract still stands if you want it, but you're free to leave if you prefer. I'll pay your passage anywhere you want to go. He left before she could respond. Eleanor lay in the bed listening to his footsteps echo through the house. The empty house. She thought about his face when he'd looked at her, not like a man looking at property, like a man looking at a miracle he didn't trust himself to hold. She thought about the way he'd said our arrangement, like it hurt him. Outside the window, Montana spread vast and white and beautiful. And somewhere in this house, a lonely man was building walls around his heart. Eleanor had run from one cage only to find another. But this cage had open doors. The question was whether she was brave enough to walk through them. Eleanor spent 3 days in bed while her body recovered from the cold's assault. Wade didn't return to her room. Instead, an older man named Tom brought her meals, simple, hearty food that tasted better than anything from Boston's finest restaurants. Boss says you're to rest, Tom said, each time setting the tray on the bedside table. Says you're not to worry about anything. But worry was all Eleanor could do. On the 4th day, she forced herself out of bed. Her legs shook. Her hands still ached inside their bandages. But she was done being an invalid. She dressed in the clothes someone Tom probably had left folded on a chair. A simple wool dress, too large, clearly borrowed. Her own clothes had been destroyed by the storm. Eleanor made her way downstairs, holding the banister for support. The house revealed itself in daylight, large, well-built, and utterly empty of life. No photographs except the one portrait above the fireplace. No personal touches. No warmth despite the fires burning in every grate. She found Wade in his study bent over a ledger. He looked up when she entered, and something flashed in his eyes, a relief concern before the mask settled back into place. You shouldn't be up. I've been up in bed for 3 days. I'll go mad if I stay there another hour. Eleanor moved into the room, studying the books on the shelves. Agricultural texts, veterinary manuals, and tucked in one corner a volume of Wordsworth's poetry. She pulled it out surprised. Wade shifted in his chair. Catherine's, he said shortly. Eleanor opened the book. The pages were worn, well read. In the margins, someone had written notes in a delicate hand. This one makes me think of the mountains at dawn. Your wife, yes. Wade's voice was flat. She died 3 years ago. Childbirth, the baby didn't survive either. The words hung in the air between them. Eleanor closed the book carefully and returned it to its place. I'm sorry. It was a long time ago. Wade turned back to his ledger. You should sit. You're still weak. Eleanor ignored the suggestion. She moved to the window instead, looking out at snow-covered pastures. In the distance, cattle grazed dark shapes against white. Mountains rose beyond them, sharp and beautiful. It's stunning, she said quietly. It's harsh, unforgiving, kills the unprepared. So does Boston. Eleanor turned to face him. Mr. Thornton, we should discuss our arrangement. There's nothing to discuss. Wade set down his pen. You were nearly killed because of my brother's greed. You don't owe me anything. When you're well enough to travel, I'll pay your passage to San Francisco or back east if you prefer. You'll have enough money to start fresh wherever you want. And your inheritance? His jaw tightened. I'll manage. No, you won't. It's December 27th. You have until March 1st to marry or you lose everything. Eleanor moved closer to his desk. Your brother will inherit this ranch, this land you've worked for years. Is that what you want? What I want doesn't matter. Then what do you need, She held his gaze. You need a wife. I need safety and a new life. The terms haven't changed. Wade stood abruptly. The terms have changed. You were supposed to arrive safely, ready to enter a business arrangement. Instead, you nearly died. You were betrayed by my family. You don't owe me. I don't think in terms of debt. Eleanor's voice was steady. I think in terms of mutual benefit. You offer me protection and a fresh start. I offer you the ability to keep your inheritance. It's still a fair trade. It's not fair. You deserve better than a loveless marriage to a... He stopped himself. To a what? A widower, a rancher, a lonely man. Eleanor's voice softened. Mr. Thornton, I'm not looking for love. I'm looking for safety, for a place where Richard Blackwood can't reach me, for a life that's mine to control. Can you give me that? Wade looked at her for a long moment. His eyes were storm-colored, full of conflict. Yes, he finally said, but not yet. What? The roads won't be clear for weeks. We're snowed in until at least mid-January. He moved past her to the window. Stay until spring. See what Montana winter is really like. Then decide if you want to be trapped here for the rest of your life. And if I decide to leave, then you leave with my blessing and enough money to build whatever life you want. Eleanor studied his profile, the sharp line of his jaw, the tension in his shoulders. He was offering her freedom, but it felt like armor, like he was protecting himself as much as her. All right, she said. I'll stay until spring. But Mr. Thornton... Wade, his voice was rough. If we're going to live together, even temporarily, you should call me Wade. Wade. The name felt strange on her tongue. I'm not afraid of hard winters. I'm not afraid of isolation. And I'm not afraid of honest work. If I stay, I won't be dead weight. He turned to look at her, surprise flickering across his face. This isn't you don't have to earn your keep. I know, but I won't sit idle either. Eleanor moved toward the door. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to find your kitchen and make myself useful. The days developed a rhythm. Wade rose before dawn to tend the animals. Eleanor woke soon after, her hands still bandaged but growing stronger. She learned the kitchen, learned to bake bread in the massive cast-iron stove. Tom taught her which supplies were which, how to make coffee strong enough to wake the dead, as he put it. She found her way around the house, found the sewing room with Catherine's basket still sitting beside the chair, thread and needles waiting. Found the library with its collection of books, agricultural texts mixed with poetry, history, and novels. Found the locked door at the end of the upstairs hall. Nursery, Tom said when he caught her staring at it. Boss keeps it locked. Hasn't been in there since... He didn't finish. Didn't need to. Eleanor didn't ask about the room again. Wade kept his distance. He ate breakfast before she woke, took lunch in the barn, came inside only for dinner. They sat at opposite ends of the long table, the silence between them heavy with things unsaid. But she noticed small kindnesses. Firewood stacked beside her door each morning, books appearing on her nightstand, novels he thought she might enjoy. Her old dress, the one she'd worn on the train, cleaned and mended and hanging in her wardrobe. On the 10th day, Wade found her in the library reading by the fire. You like Wordsworth, he said. It wasn't a question. I like anything well written. Eleanor marked her place. Catherine had good taste. Wade moved to the bookshelf, pulled down another volume. Try this. If you like Wordsworth, you'll like Keats. He held out the book. Eleanor took it, their fingers brushing. Wade pulled back like he'd been burned. Wade, she said carefully, I won't break. You saved my life. You don't have to treat me like glass. I treat you like someone who's been through hell. Then treat me like someone who survived it. She opened the Keats. Read with me? What? It's a long winter. We're stuck together. We might as well be civilized about it. She gestured to the chair across from her. Unless you have somewhere else to be. Wade hesitated. Then slowly he sat. They read in silence for an hour. The fire crackled. Snow fell outside the windows. And for the first time since Catherine's death, Wade's house felt less like a tomb. January brought deeper cold and higher snow. The ranch was cut off from town completely. Tom stayed in the bunkhouse, Wade in the main house with Eleanor. They fell into a routine that felt almost normal. Eleanor took over cooking. Wade taught her about the ranch, how to read the weather, how to tell when cattle were struggling, how to recognize the signs of a coming storm. She taught him that silence didn't have to be lonely. They read together in the evenings. Sometimes Wade would look up from his book to find Eleanor watching the fire, her face pensive. Sometimes she would glance over to find him watching her with an expression she couldn't quite name. Neither of them spoke about the future, about March 1st and marriage and decisions that would change everything. But the silence between them was changing, growing warmer, less like armor, more like comfort. One night in mid-January, Eleanor woke to screaming. She bolted upright in bed, heart hammering. The screams came again. Wade's voice ragged with terror. She ran to his room without thinking, found him thrashing in his bed, caught in nightmare's grip. Wade! She grabbed his shoulders. Wade, wake up! His eyes snapped open, wild and unseeing. His hand shot out and caught her wrist painfully tight. It's me, she said softly. It's Eleanor. You're safe. Recognition flooded his face. He released her wrist like it had burned him, sitting up, breathing hard. I'm sorry, God, I'm sorry. He ran a shaking hand through his hair. Did I hurt you? No. Eleanor sat on the edge of his bed, rubbing her wrist. Nightmare. Wade nodded, not meeting her eyes. His shirt was soaked with sweat. In the moonlight streaming through the window, Eleanor could see the tremor in his hands. Do you want to talk about it? No. Do you want me to leave? He was quiet for a long moment. Then so quietly she almost missed it. No. Eleanor stood and moved to the washstand. She poured water into the basin, brought it back with a cloth. Wade watched her confused. Here, she handed him the cloth. You're burning up. He took it, wiped his face and neck. His hands gradually stopped shaking. It was about Catherine, he said finally. About the night she died. I was 2 days away checking the herd in the mountains, Bahins. By the time I got back, she was already in labor, already in trouble. Eleanor waited. The baby was breech. The doctor couldn't turn him. Catherine hemorrhaged. Wade's voice was hollow. She asked for me, called my name, but I wasn't there. I was out counting cattle while my wife died. That's not your fault. Isn't it? I chose the ranch over her. Chose business over being home. Eleanor sat back down on the bed close enough that their shoulders almost touched. My father chose gambling over me, over my mother's memory, over the life we could have had. She stared at the moonlight on the floor. He was a good man once, but grief broke him, turned him into someone I didn't recognize. I'm sorry. So am I. She turned to look at Wade. But his choices weren't my fault. And your wife's death wasn't yours. You couldn't have known. Couldn't have saved her, even if you'd been there. I could have held her hand, could have said goodbye. Yes. Eleanor didn't look away. And that's a grief you'll carry, but it's not a debt you owe. They sat in silence, Wade's breathing slowly evened. Outside, the wind had picked up, howling around the corners of the house. Thank you, Wade said finally, for waking me, for not leaving. Do you want me to stay until you fall asleep? He looked at her and something in his eyes made her breath catch. Yes. Eleanor shifted to lean against the headboard, still sitting on top of the covers. Wade lay back down, keeping a careful distance between them. Tell me about Boston, he said. What did you do before all this? I was a teacher at a girls' school. Eleanor smiled at the memory. Literature and composition, I loved it. Loved watching students discover books that changed them. Why did you stop? My father's debts, real or imagined, they meant I couldn't work. Couldn't be seen in public. Blackwood made sure I was isolated, controllable. Wade's jaw tightened. If I ever see him, you won't. He's in Boston. I'm here. She looked down at her hands, the bandages finally removed. Pink scars marked her fingers where the frostbite had been worst. I'm free of him. Are you? Wade's voice was gentle. You woke screaming twice last week. Eleanor went still. You heard that? I'm in the room next door. Of course I heard. He shifted to look at her. What do you dream about? She was quiet for a long time. Then being trapped, in a room with no doors. Blackwood's there, but I can't see him. Just his voice telling me I belong to him, that I'll never escape. Eleanor. Wade sat up. You're safe here. I swear it. He'll never touch you. I know. She turned to meet his eyes. That's the strange part. During the day, I believe it. I feel safe, but at night, the fear comes back. I understand. Wade's hand moved, almost reaching for hers, then stopped. The nightmares don't care what you know. They show you what you fear most. What do you fear most? He looked away. Being alone, not physically. I've been alone for 3 years, but being alone inside, having no one who knows me, no one who sees me. He laughed bitterly. Pathetic, isn't it? The richest man in Montana afraid of being lonely. It's not pathetic, it's human. Eleanor did what Wade hadn't reached out and took his hand. His fingers were calloused warm. They curled around hers carefully like he was afraid she'd pull away. She didn't. They sat like that, hands linked, until Wade's breathing deepened and sleep claimed him. Eleanor extracted her hand carefully and stood to leave. At the door, she looked back. Wade slept peacefully now, his face finally relaxed. The moonlight painted him in shades of silver, and Eleanor realized with a jolt that stole her breath that she didn't want to leave in the spring. The next morning, everything was different. Wade found Eleanor in the kitchen, kneading bread dough. He stopped in the doorway, coffee cup in hand, watching her work. Morning, he said. She looked up, flour dusting her cheek. Good morning. Neither of them mentioned the night before, but something had shifted. The careful distance they'd maintained had shrunk. Wade poured 2 cups of coffee and sat at the kitchen table. Eleanor joined him, wiping her hands on her apron. Tom says the road to town might be clear by next week, Wade said. Eleanor's heart sank. Oh, we could go in, get you some proper clothes, books, whatever you need. He studied his coffee. Unless you'd rather I went alone. I'd like to see the town. Eleanor wrapped her hands around her cup. If that's all right. Of course it's all right. This is your home, for as long as you want it to be. Home, the words settled over her like a blanket. Wade, she said carefully, about our arrangement. About spring. He looked up, his eyes guarded. I don't want to wait until spring to decide. Eleanor, I want to stay. The words rushed out. I want to marry you, not because I'm trapped, not because I owe you, but because... She stopped searching for the right words. Because I've spent 3 weeks in this house and it's the first place I've felt safe in years. Because you're kind and honest and you understand what it's like to carry grief. Because... Don't, Wade stood abruptly. Don't do this. Do what? Talk yourself into loving me. His voice was harsh. I'm offering you freedom, Eleanor. Don't trade one cage for another. This isn't a cage, isn't it? You can't leave, can't go to town, can't do anything without my permission. That's the snow talking, not you. Eleanor stood to face him. Once the road's clear, I can go anywhere. You've said it yourself. You'll pay my passage, help me start over. You're giving me choices, Wade. That's not a cage. He turned away from her. You deserve better than a loveless marriage to a man who still talks to his dead wife's portrait. Eleanor's breath caught. You talk to Catherine every night. Wade's shoulders were rigid. I tell her about the day, about the ranch, about... He stopped. About me. Silence. Eleanor moved around the table to stand in front of him. Wade, look at me. Reluctantly, he met her eyes. I'm not asking you to love me. I'm not asking you to forget Catherine. I'm asking for partnership, for honesty, for a chance to build something real, even if it starts as a contract. Why? The word was torn from him. Why would you want this? Want me? Because loneliness is worse than anything Richard Blackwood could do to me. Because I see the way you fight to save every calf, every struggling animal on this ranch. Because you gave me freedom when you could have demanded gratitude. She reached up and touched his face, her scarred fingers gentle against his stubbled jaw. Because when I look at you, I don't see a lonely billionaire or a grieving widower. I see a man trying to do right by everyone but himself. Wade's hand came up to cover hers. I don't know how to do this, how to let someone in again. Neither do I, but we could learn together. For a long moment they stood there, her hand on his face, his hand covering hers. Outside, snow began to fall again, covering the world in white. Then Wade stepped back. I need to think, he said. This is too important to rush. Eleanor let her hand fall. Right. He moved toward the door, then stopped. Eleanor. Yes. I'm glad you're here, whatever we decide. I'm glad you're here. He left before she could respond. Eleanor sank back into her chair, her heart hammering. She'd laid her cards on the table, told him she wanted to stay. Now all she could do was wait. Wade didn't come to dinner that night, or breakfast the next morning. He threw himself into ranch work, leaving before dawn and returning after Eleanor had gone to bed. On the third day, Eleanor had had enough. She bundled up in the warmest clothes she could find and marched out to the barn. Wade was there mending tack by lantern light. Running away, she asked. He looked up, startled. I'm working. You're hiding. Eleanor closed the barn door behind her. You've been avoiding me for 3 days. I told you I needed to think. Thinking doesn't require you to sleep in the barn, Wade. She moved closer. Talk to me. There's nothing to say. There's everything to do. I told you I want to stay, want to build a life here, and you've been running ever since. Wade set down the leather strap he'd been working on. Because I'm terrified, all right. I'm terrified that you'll stay out of gratitude or fear, and one day you'll wake up and realize you've wasted your life on a man who can't give you what you deserve. And what do I deserve? Love, passion, a man who isn't broken. Eleanor laughed, the sound sharp. Wade, I'm just as broken as you are. My father died believing he'd failed me. The man who was supposed to marry me tried to buy me like livestock. I have nightmares about being trapped. I have scars on my hands from nearly freezing to death. She held up her hands showing the pink marks. I'm not some innocent maiden waiting for a perfect love story. I'm a survivor looking for a safe place to land. I can give you safety, but I can't promise love. I'm not asking for promises. Eleanor closed the distance between them. I'm asking for honesty, for partnership, for a chance of fun. Wade stared down at her, conflict written across his face. What if I fail you? What if I'm out checking cattle when you need me? What if I can't protect you? Then I'll protect myself. I'm not Catherine Wade. I'm not fragile. I'm not going to die in childbirth or wait helplessly while you're away. I'm going to live. She reached for his hands, holding them tight. But I'd like to live here with you if you'll have me. Eleanor, the barn door burst open. Tom stood there breathless, his face pale in the lantern light. Boss, riders coming. 3 of them. They're asking for Miss Ashford. Eleanor's blood turned to ice. Wade's hands tightened on hers. Who are they? Don't know, but they're armed, and they don't look friendly. Wade released Eleanor's hands and grabbed his rifle from the wall. Stay here. No, Eleanor followed him to the door. If this is about me, I face it. They stepped out into the snow together. 3 men sat on horses near the house, their faces shadowed in the twilight. One of them dismounted, and Eleanor's worst nightmare became real. Richard Blackwood smiled at her like a wolf. Hello, my dear, he said. Time to come home. Eleanor felt Wade go rigid beside her. His hand moved to the rifle, but he didn't raise it. Not yet. This is private property, Wade said, his voice deadly calm. State your business. Blackwood's smile widened. He was exactly as Eleanor remembered, silver-haired, impeccably dressed, even in the Montana wilderness, his eyes cold despite the charm of his expression. I'm here to collect what's mine. Blackwood gestured to Eleanor. This woman is my betrothed. She ran from Boston under false pretenses. I've come to bring her home. I'm not your betrothed. Eleanor stepped forward, forcing her voice steady. I never agreed to marry you. Your father agreed on your behalf. My father is dead, and his debts, the debts you used to manipulate him, were forgeries. You have no claim on me. Blackwood tisked. Such accusations, my dear. Do you have proof? Eleanor's hands clenched. She didn't. The papers had all been in Boston in her father's study. Blackwood would have destroyed them by now. Leave, Quash, Wade said. Now, before I have you arrested for trespassing. Arrested, dear me. Blackwood laughed. On what grounds? I have documentation showing Eleanor's father owed me $15,000. Documentation showing he offered his daughter's hand in marriage to settle the debt. All legal, all binding. He pulled papers from his coat. I even have witnesses. The two men behind him nodded. They looked like hired muscle, not credible witnesses. But that wouldn't matter in a frontier court, and Blackwood knew it. Those papers are lies, Eleanor said. Prove it. Blackwood's smile turned sharp. Or come with me peacefully. Your choice, my dear. Wade raised the rifle. Don't. Blackwood didn't move, didn't flinch. Shoot me, and my associates will testify that you murdered an innocent man trying to retrieve his stolen bride. They'll hang you, Mr. Thornton. And then where will Eleanor be? Wade's jaw worked. The rifle didn't waver. Wade, Eleanor said softly, don't. I'm not letting him take you. You don't have a choice. Blackwood gestured to his men. We have the law on our side. We have witnesses. We have documentation. What do you have? A woman who ran from her legal obligations. She's my wife. The words came from behind them. Everyone turned. Marcus Thornton stood in the doorway of the house holding a piece of paper. What? Wade's voice was strangled. Marcus walked forward, his face oddly calm. Eleanor and Wade were married 2 weeks ago, January 15th. I performed the ceremony myself as a licensed minister. He held up the paper. Here's the certificate, signed witness legal. Eleanor's mind reeled. Marcus, the man who tried to sell her to Blackwood, was claiming they were married. Blackwood's composure cracked. That's impossible. I would have heard. From whom? Your network of informants in Montana. Marcus's smile was cold. You're not in Boston anymore, Blackwood. Out here, we take care of our own. Wade hadn't moved, hadn't lowered the rifle. He stared at his brother like he'd never seen him before. Then, let me see that certificate, Blackwood demanded. Marcus handed it over. Blackwood studied it, his face darkening. This could be forged. It could be, so could your debt papers. Marcus crossed his arms. Shall we let the territorial judge decide? I'm happy to ride to Helena and file it officially. Are you? Blackwood looked at Eleanor, at Wade, at the rifle still trained on his chest. Whatever he saw in Wade's eyes made him take a step back. This isn't over, he said softly. I will prove this is a fraud. And when I do, Eleanor, I will come for you. If you come back here, you'll leave in a pine box. Wade's voice was arctic. Now get off my land. Blackwood mounted his horse. His men followed suit. They rode into the gathering darkness, disappearing into the Montana wilderness. No one moved until the hoofbeats faded completely. Then Wade turned to Marcus. What the hell was that? Marcus handed him the marriage certificate. A lie, but a useful one. Blackwood won't push this. He's too smart to challenge a marriage in territorial court when his own documentation is fraudulent. Why? Eleanor asked. Why would you help us after I tried to sell you? Marcus's laugh was bitter. Because I'm a lot of things, but I'm not Richard Blackwood. When I saw him in town asking questions, buying information, he shook his head. Some lines shouldn't be crossed. Wade stared at his brother. You knew he was coming. Got word yesterday, that's why I rode out. Marcus looked at Eleanor. I'm sorry for everything. For Silas, for the wagon, for... His voice cracked. I was angry at Wade, at the world. But I never meant for you to nearly die. Never meant for this. Where's Silas? Wade's voice was hard. Gone. Left the territory after I paid him off. He won't be back. Marcus met Wade's eyes. I know you'll never forgive me, but I couldn't let Blackwood take her. Couldn't live with that on my conscience too. Wade lowered the rifle slowly. You need to leave, tonight. I know. Marcus turned to go, then stopped. For what it's worth, Wade, she's good for you. I've never seen you look at anyone the way you look at her. Not even. He cut himself off. Take care of each other. He walked to his horse and mounted. Within minutes he was gone, swallowed by the same darkness that had taken Blackwood. Eleanor and Wade stood in the snow. Tom silent behind them. Boss, Tom said carefully, want me to ride to town? Get the sheriff. No. Wade was still staring at the certificate in his hand. Blackwood won't come back. Marcus was right about that much. I'll be in the bunkhouse if you need me. Tom slipped away, leaving them alone. Wade finally looked at Eleanor. In the moonlight, his face was unreadable. We should go inside, he said. They walked to the house in silence. Wade built up the fire while Eleanor stood by the window, her arms wrapped around herself. "I'm sorry," she said finally. "For what?" "For bringing this to your door, for dragging you into my mess." Wade turned to face her. "Eleanor, you didn't drag me into anything. I chose to help you, chose to offer you sanctuary, and I'd make the same choice again, even knowing it might have gotten you killed, especially knowing that." He moved toward her. "Do you understand what I'm saying? I would die before I let Blackwood take you." Eleanor's breath caught. "Wade, I've been a coward, hiding in the barn, avoiding you, pretending I could think my way through this." He stopped in front of her. "But watching Blackwood try to claim you, knowing I might lose you, it clarified everything." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I don't want you to leave in the spring. I don't want you to leave ever." Wade took her hands, careful of the scars. "I'm saying Marcus's lies should be truth. I'm saying marry me, not as a business arrangement, not to fulfill a will, but because I want you here, because these 3 weeks with you have been the first time I've felt alive since Catherine died. You don't have to. I know I don't have to. I want to." He lifted her hands to his lips, kissed her scarred knuckles. "I can't promise I won't have nightmares. Can't promise I won't struggle with grief. Can't promise to be perfect, but I can promise to choose you every day, to fight for you, to build a life with you where we're both free." Tears spilled down Eleanor's cheeks. "I want that too. God, Wade, I want that so much." "Then say yes." "Yes." She laughed through the tears. "Yes, I'll marry you, for real this time." Wade pulled her into his arms. Eleanor buried her face in his chest, breathing in the scent of leather and pine and home. They stood like that for a long time, holding each other while the fire crackled and snow fell outside. Finally, Wade pulled back enough to look at her. "We should do it right this time. Not a forged certificate, a real ceremony. When tomorrow, before I lose my nerve." He smiled and it transformed his face. "I'll ride to town at first light, get the preacher. We'll do it properly. In front of witnesses. Tom can witness, and Mrs. Holloway from the boarding house. She'll be thrilled." Eleanor laughed. "You've thought this through." "I've thought of nothing else for 3 days." Wade cupped her face in his hands. "Eleanor Ashford, you terrify me. You make me hope again, and I don't know which scares me more." "You terrify me too," she admitted. "This feeling, wanting something so much it hurts. Trusting someone again. It's terrifying. Then we'll be terrified together." He leaned down and kissed her. It was soft, at first tentative, like they were both afraid to break something precious. Then Eleanor's hand slid up to his neck and Wade made a sound low in his throat and deepened the kiss. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Wade rested his forehead against hers. "Stay with me tonight," he said. "Not in separate rooms, not pretending we're strangers. Stay with me." "Yes." He led her upstairs to his room, the room where she'd sat with him during his nightmare, where they'd first started being honest with each other. Wade lit the lamp while Eleanor stood by the window, suddenly nervous. This was crossing a line, making a choice there was no taking back. "Eleanor." Wade came up behind her. "We don't have to." "I want to." She turned to face him. "I want this. Want you. I've never." Understanding dawned in his eyes. "We'll take it slow. And if you want to stop at any point, we stop. No questions, no pressure." She nodded, grateful. Wade reached up and gently unpinned her hair. It fell around her shoulders in dark waves. He ran his fingers through it, his touch reverent. "Beautiful," he murmured. Eleanor reached for the buttons of his shirt with shaking fingers. Wade covered her hands with his. "Let me," he said softly. He undressed them both with patient care, stopping frequently to kiss her to make sure she was still willing. When they finally lay together in his bed, skin against skin, Eleanor felt something unlock in her chest. This was trust. This was choice. This was freedom. Wade made love to her, slowly, carefully reading her responses, learning what made her gasp, what made her cling to him. It hurt at first, but the pain was brief, washed away by the pleasure of his touch, his voice murmuring her name like a prayer. Afterward, they lay tangled together, Eleanor's head on Wade's chest, his arms wrapped around her. "Are you all right?" he asked. "More than all right." She traced patterns on his skin. "Wade, thank you for being patient, for making it perfect." He kissed the top of her head. It was perfect. Eleanor smiled against his chest. Outside, the storm had picked up again, wind howling around the house. But here in Wade's arms, she felt safe, felt home. Wade left for town at dawn. Eleanor watched from the window as he rode away, then turned to face the empty house. Not empty, she corrected herself, hers. She spent the morning cooking, preparing a wedding feast. Tom helped, clearly delighted by the turn of events. "Never thought I'd see the boss happy again," he said, chopping vegetables. "But you did it, ma'am. Brought him back to life." He did the same for me. By afternoon, the food was ready. Eleanor went upstairs to change, choosing the blue wool dress, the one Wade had cleaned and mended for her. It wasn't a traditional wedding dress, but it felt right. She was pinning up her hair when she heard hoofbeats. Eleanor rushed to the window expecting Wade. Instead, she saw Blackwood. He was alone this time, his horse lathered from hard riding. Eleanor's blood went cold. She grabbed Wade's rifle from the bedroom and ran downstairs. Tom was already at the door, his own gun in hand. "Stay inside," he told her. "No." Eleanor pushed past him. "He came for me. I'll face him." She stepped onto the porch, raising the rifle. Blackwood stopped 20 feet away, his hands raised. "I'm unarmed," he called. "I just want to talk." "You have 30 seconds. "Eleanor, please, be reasonable." Blackwood dismounted slowly. "I've invested too much in you to simply walk away. Your father owed me. My father owed you nothing. You forged those debts. You manipulated a grieving man into believing he'd failed his daughter." Eleanor's voice shook with rage. "You tried to buy me, tried to imprison me. Well, I'm not for sale, Richard. I never was." "You think that cowboy loves you?" Blackwood laughed. "He ordered you like cattle. You're just another possession to him." "No, but..." Eleanor didn't lower the rifle. "He's given me more freedom in 3 weeks than you did in 3 years. He's given me choice, respect, a life that's mine. He's given you isolation in the middle of nowhere. Come back to Boston with me. I'll tear up the debt papers. I'll set you up in a house of your own. You'll have money independence culture. I'll have a cage with prettier bars." "The answer is no." Blackwood's face hardened. "You're making a mistake." "Maybe, but it's my mistake to make." Eleanor finally lowered the rifle. "Go home, Richard. Find some other woman to control. Leave me in peace." "I could make your life very difficult, Eleanor. One word to the right people and your husband's business deals evaporate. One whisper and his credit is destroyed. I have connections. And I have a rifle." Wade's voice rang out. Eleanor turned. Wade rode toward them, the preacher and Mrs. Holloway on a wagon behind him. He dismounted and moved to stand beside Eleanor, his own rifle in hand. "You threatened my wife," Wade said quietly. "That was your last mistake." "I'm shaking." Blackwood's sarcasm was brittle. "You should be." Wade didn't raise his voice. Didn't need to. "I'm the richest man in Montana. I supply beef to every mining camp, every army fort, every town within 500 miles. One word from me, and you'll never do business west of the Mississippi again." Blackwood paled. "I have connections too," Wade continued. "Territorial governor, federal marshal, senators in Washington, and every single one of them will believe me when I tell them you attempted to kidnap my wife, forged debt papers, bribed witnesses. You can't prove up to you. I don't have to prove anything. I just have to make enough noise that people start investigating. How long before they find other forged documents, other women you've manipulated, other families you've destroyed?" Wade's smile was cold. "Make my life difficult, and I'll make yours impossible. Your choice." Blackwood looked between Wade and Eleanor. Whatever he saw in their unified front made him take a step back. "This isn't over," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Yes, it is." Wade lowered his rifle. "Ride back to Boston, Blackwood. Forget Eleanor exists, and pray I don't decide to investigate your business practices anyway." Blackwood mounted his horse. He looked at Eleanor one last time. "You could have had everything." "I have everything." Eleanor reached for Wade's hand. "I have freedom." Blackwood rode away. This time Eleanor knew he wouldn't return. Wade turned to her, his eyes searching. "Are you all right?" "I'm perfect." Eleanor kissed him, not caring that the preacher and Mrs. Holloway were watching. "Now I believe we have a wedding to get to, Warren." They married in the living room in front of the fireplace. Mrs. Holloway cried happy tears. Tom grinned like a proud father. The preacher's voice was solemn as he spoke the words that made them husband and wife. When Wade kissed Eleanor this time, it felt like a beginning. They had dinner around the big table, no longer empty. Mrs. Holloway told stories about Wade as a young man. Tom shared tales of ranch life. The preacher blessed their union and their future children. Eleanor looked around the table at these people who'd become her family and felt something slot into place in her chest. This was home. Not the house, not the land. These people. This man beside her, his hand linked with hers beneath the table. After everyone left, Wade led Eleanor upstairs. They stood in the hallway outside the locked nursery door. "I need to show you something," Wade said. He unlocked the door. Inside, dust motes danced in the moonlight. A cradle sat in the corner, hand-carved and beautiful. A rocking chair, a small wardrobe, and on the wall, painted in soft colors, a mural of mountains and wildflowers. "Catherine painted it," Wade said softly. "Before she died, she wanted our son to see Montana's beauty from his first day." Eleanor took his hand. "It's lovely. I haven't been in here since the funeral." Wade's voice was rough. "Couldn't face it. But I want to now. Want to make new memories. Want to—" He stopped. "Want to try again." Eleanor finished gently. Wade turned to look at her. "Would you want that, children? Someday, when we're both ready." She squeezed his hand. "We have time." "We do." Wade pulled her close. "We have all the time in the world." They stood in the nursery holding each other while moonlight painted the mural in silver. Outside, Montana stretched vast and free and beautiful, and Eleanor Thornton no longer. Ashford no longer running, knew she was finally home. 10. Epilogue. Spring came to Montana with wildflowers and warm wind. Eleanor stood in the meadow behind the house watching Wade work with the new foal. He moved with practiced ease, gentle and patient. The foal trusted him completely. Her hand drifted to her stomach, still flat but not for much longer. She'd suspected for a week. This morning, Mrs. Holloway had confirmed it. Wade looked up and caught her watching. He smiled a real smile, the kind that transformed his whole face, and walked toward her. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "The future." Eleanor took his hand and placed it on her stomach. "Our future." Wade's eyes widened. "Eleanor, are you by?" "Yes." He kissed her with a joy that made her laugh. When he pulled back, his eyes were wet. "I'm terrified," he admitted. "So am I." Eleanor cupped his face. "But we'll face it together." "Together," Wade agreed. They walked back to the house, hand in hand, their shadows long in the afternoon sun. Behind them, the mountains stood eternal. Above them, the sky spread endless and blue. And ahead of them lay a future they'd chosen, not bought, not forced, but freely given. A future worth every frozen step in the snow. A future called home. Thank you for joining Wade and Eleanor on their journey from loneliness to love, from contracts to commitment. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more emotional Western romance tales. Leave a comment below. What was your favorite moment in this story? The blizzard rescue, the quiet nights by the fire, the final confrontation with Blackwood. We read every comment and love hearing from you. And if you know someone who loves slow burn romances with deep emotional connections, share this story with them. Stories are meant to be shared. Until next time, may you find your own Montana, a place where broken hearts heal and love grows from the most unexpected beginnings. Don't forget to subscribe and ring that bell. Our next story drops soon and you won't want to miss it.